Hi everyone, it's Yvette Le Blowitz from SPAITGIRL.com and welcome to the SPAITGIRL Talk Show podcast. I'm super excited to be here with you today and with our very special guest, Sonia Bestulic, who is a multi-award nominated children's author, speech pathologist, podcaster, and highly regarded speaker. She is also the founder of Talking Heads Speech Pathology Clinics in Sydney, Australia. Sonia is an advocate for honouring mothers' well-being, celebrating children, and living a life powered by love. She combines real-world experience, having worked with thousands of mothers and their children, together with her own lived motherhood, raising 3 children, all born within about 2.5 years apart. Sonia shares a natural gift for empowering those with children in their lives to embrace their own personal growth. And now Sonia is an author and published author of Flourish for Mums, 21 Ways to Thrive with Self-Care and Acceptance, which has just launched in Australia in all bookstores, major retailers, and online through Booktopia. Sonia Bestulic, congratulations on the launch of Flourish for Mums. It's an honor, and I'm super grateful to have you on the podcast show. And welcome to our global audience who are tuning in right around the world. I'm so grateful you're here today with us both. Sonia, how are you?
I'm doing really well, and thank you so much for having me join you. It's so exciting, and I loved your intro. So thank you so much. I can't wait to have a chat.
Yeah, so congratulations, Sonia. I love the cover of your book. For those who are tuning in, there is 2 hands, and in the shape of a love heart is these beautiful colors of flowers. But Sonia, before we dive into your incredible book, can you share a little bit about who you are and how this whole journey unfolded for you?
Yeah, so I will take it back a little bit. I grew up, obviously, in Sydney, Australia, in a very hardworking family. Both my parents came from overseas without any English, and I'm one of 4 siblings. So really from a young age, we all had to work hard together as a team, as a family. So I really learnt about teamwork and collaboration from day dot, pretty much. But also what stood out for me in childhood was I was exposed to a lot of news on the TV being on a lot. And I recall at that time being really confused as to why certain things were happening in the world. And so that really stuck with me. And I guess there was that inner decision as a young girl that I wanted to empower positive change and I wanted to make a difference. And, I remember that with such clarity, and that fueled me, from childhood, having an interest in teaching and helping others. I had an interest in health and just people in general. And I guess just, as I said, that helping, the health, the teaching, the education, I was really passionate about how can I make a difference. And so it all kind of stemmed from there. And as I grew up and finished school, I, of course, got into a health science, that being speech pathology. And that really, I guess it ticked the boxes in terms of helping and connecting people and making a difference, because as we know, helping one person has such a beautiful domino effect to helping others. And I experienced that all the time as a speech pathologist, and I still am. But writing was also always a part of my life, Yvette. Even as a child, that was always my outlet. That was my form of expression. That was my therapeutic, kind of lifestyle, if you like. And so I continued to write for all different reasons. And that then kind of flowed into writing for children. And as you mentioned, I am a children's author. So I had 2 children's books published, and they are both award nominated nationally. They were published in 2018 and 2019. And then my work as a speech pathologist, that's been both in Australia, it's been international. And 15 years ago, I started a clinic. So I started a company in Sydney, and about 4 to 5 years in, I had my first child, and then 14 months later, I had my second, and 16 months later, I had my third. So within 2.5 years, I had 3 children while still running a speech pathology company, and everything else that comes with it. And to be quite honest, that fueled me even further in terms of the inspiration I had to write about and write for children. I started podcasting. Chat About Children podcast was born in 2018. And then Flourish for Mums, which, I'll talk more about the inspiration shortly, but it all just seemed a natural culmination, really, because a big part of my life is about honoring mothers. I've worked with so many. I understand the motherhood world and journey, but also celebrating children, because they are the most beautiful, amazing teachers that we have, that we share this world with. And so Flourish for Mums really is kind of the marriage of all of that, which has been really amazing, actually.
Wow, that is such an inspirational story, Sonia. You are such an entrepreneur beyond your years running a clinic. And to think that you had 3 children whilst running the clinic and being a business owner and a woman entrepreneur, girl boss, and having 3 young children is such an incredible achievement. And can I ask, you had your 3 children, you've got your clinic. How did you, at that point, when they're so small, fit in any self-care moments? And so there might be someone who's listening to you going, oh my goodness, Sonia, that sounds like me running a business or having a full-time job. And now I've got these 3 little ones and they could be feeling like so overwhelmed. How did you make time for you?
Yes. Well, the early years of motherhood, they are certainly the super challenging years, because you are thrown into a whole new world, and it is overwhelming, and there is a lot of conflicting info. So how did I find the time to look after me? It has changed, and it continues to change and evolve. And I think that's really important to say, that self-care is not a one-size-fits-all, nor is it, oh, I've got this one thing that I do and that's going to work without fail each and every time. What's important to know is that you're growing and evolving as your children are, as your circumstances are. So it's important to be open to embracing new things, and that includes yourself in your new context. So, and obviously I talk a lot about that in Flourish for Mums. But I guess for me, how I found time was, and I didn't always do it like super successfully, I was not like, oh yeah, I'm really busy and I'm running a clinic, I've got 3 kids, so I'm going to do this, and tick, that worked brilliantly. It was really, as I said, trial and error, and just going, this is how I'm feeling right now, being expressive. This is hard. What do I need? And that self-awareness, that development of self-awareness is probably the most important and effective tool, if I can call it that, or evolution. That is the most important aspect of any self-care. So for me, it was really about learning about myself in the new context. Then in terms of the time, you've heard this, we all have the same hours in the day, but we tend to prioritize what is important. Now, a lot of mums, including myself, particularly in the early years, there's such an outer focus on the children and on everything else. And, we've got to do this and do that and be everything for everyone. And it's not even that we're last on the list. I feel like we don't even realize we're not on the list. And so that was the realization that I came to, that I hadn't even realized that. So for me, it was, the early years was very much about, I guess, a little bit of adapting really, really quickly and just doing what I needed to do to be okay. So whether it was asking for help, being aware of my needs, accepting that they're changing all the time, and being okay with that and not being so hard on myself or feeling like I failed. So that kind of answers your question in a roundabout way. But the important thing is that I came to a place of realizing that when I was in a place of connecting with myself, even a little in some way each day, that I saw very quickly the flow-on effect that it had on my children and those that I share my world with, without me really making too much of an effort. It was like, if I take care of myself and if I'm reconnecting with myself, if I'm in a good inner space, everything suddenly seems to be different and easier, and I'm experiencing life at a whole new level. And so that's been a pretty amazing journey.
Wow, that's incredible. So self-awareness, and I love how you express self-compassion, asking for help and accepting that you're not going to be able to do anything, that it's quite okay and normal to have your focus completely on your children, or you discovered that you weren't on your list, your self-care list. So now that you know about the importance of practicing self-care and you put yourself on this list, what does your self-care rituals look like now as time has evolved?
Yeah, so now my ritual, I absolutely love it. So, and I know that it will change and tweak, but right now, I do a couple of things, and it's really about how I start my day and greet the day, and how I close my day and farewell it. So those two parts of the day, they're the sacred space times, I guess. And obviously there's stuff in between, but this is my almost non-negotiable each day. So in terms of my morning routine, I love to get up early. Early just means before everyone else is up, and it could be an hour before, an hour and a half. It's a little bit different each day, but it is early. It is my silent time. It is a time where I will shower, moisturize my whole body at a pace that I want to move at. I will light a candle, and I usually will look out. We've got bushland near us, so I will look out and just listen to the outer worlds. And then I take time to listen to my inner worlds, and I practice gratitude. And I also set my mantra for the day. It's not what I want to do, it's about what I want to be. So is it that I would like to be experiencing more joy that day, or be as patient as I possibly can be with myself, or be pausing in my interactions with others and be more responsive? So I set that mantra, just one key one for the day, and that sets up my to be. And then throughout the day, I find that my mind will just come back to that. It will come back to that. And I won't be hard on myself if I'm not achieving it, but it's just that gentle coming back to that mantra. And it works absolute wonders. It also sets my rhythm at a pace that is slower, and I would say more human. And that's really important, is remembering our humanness. So that pace, then it sets my pace for the day, because if I then ramp up and get tense about something, or we're going to be late, I'm very quick at going, that feels different, that doesn't feel good, and I'm able to reset because I have started the day that way. So that kind of routine I absolutely love. And sometimes I'll use essential oils as well. I'll choose one that I feel like for the day, pop it on my PJ jumper or something, just so that I can waft that in while I sit. And I also do a lot of writing, Yvette, in the morning. I love to just write whatever. I like having no rules, and writing is no rules. So I also allow that to be my creative space. So that's the morning part of the day and greeting the day. Now, ending the day is also really important. So I close that with what I call, first up, my to-do list, getting that out of the way and out of my head. So the evening is about the to-do list. The morning is the to be. Yeah, so that's the difference. So I get my to-do list out in the evening. That helps my brain to be ready to relax and to sleep. And then I love to, and you'll notice a theme here, go to bed, do some writing. And I don't have rules around what I'm going to write. It's not like I'm going to write a kid's book tonight or I'm going to write this stuff. I don't set any goals. I just sit with my paper and pen, and whatever happens, happens. And again, it is just an experience of liberation to be able to do that. So I love to end with writing and sometimes reading. It just depends how I'm feeling. So that's kind of my basic. If I need deeper level stuff, I'm having a bath with candles and music and all that stuff. But my basic self-care is exactly what I've described.
Wow. I love your self-care rituals. You're setting yourself up to be, setting your intention, what you want to call in for the day. You're nurturing your body, mind, soul with your body lotion, which is connecting. And then I love your evening, which is the to-do. And then reflecting on at both morning and evening, you're writing and journaling and getting your thoughts and feelings out, which I have to say, I have that in common with you. I love writing in the morning, like free flowing. I don't know what it's going to be or what I'm writing about. Also practice gratitude and setting in the intention. And even in the evening, reviewing what were the most incredible things that happened from the day, things to be grateful for. And then, therapeutic. Writing is so beneficial for our mental health and well-being. And all of the psychologists and psychiatrists I've had on the show talk about how beneficial that is for our mental well-being and processing emotions and getting it on paper. I find before going to bed helps with if you're an overthinker. It's like you've got it all out instead of it just going around and around and around that head and you're thinking about it, just get it out. But Sonia, that's really incredible that you've got that routine in place. Now, when it comes to your book, first of all, congratulations on your book. I get super excited when there's a new book which is about self-care. And in particular, this one is for mothers. And then we've got Mother's Day coming up soon. But I love the cover is pink, Flourish for mums, which I want to ask you more about. But also you obviously love flowers because the photo of the beautiful love heart flowers. But why did you call your book title Flourish for Mums?
Because that's exactly the journey that mums can experience. And let me explain that further. So the book has 21 ways to thrive with self-care and acceptance. And if you can imagine each of those 21 ways, if you can imagine one as a seed that is planted, if that seed is nurtured and fed and you're connecting with it, it grows, it thrives, and it brings you to a place of flourishing. And so, flourishing is really the outcome of Flourish for mums. And the 21 ways are those seeds that are planted and nurtured. And for a lot of mums, they might find that they might relate to or respond to one of those ways and really strongly and just go, you know what, I might need to spend a few weeks with this particular principle that's here. Another might say I need to spend a few months with it, depending on what's going on, because it's a book that's designed in a way that's really easy to access, pick up, get a dose of inspiration. But it's also something that it builds your relationship with yourself. And it allows you to open those doorways to really explore your inner world more deeply. Because when you're doing that, as we said before, and you're strengthening that relationship with yourself, and it's a positive, flourishing one, that effortlessly will then benefit everyone that you share your world with. And so flourishing is it's so important symbolically. and the love heart and the flowers. Like there's all such strong symbolism there, and it's just beautiful. Like it's a beautiful way of living when you are able to accept yourself, and keep I guess the commitment to yourself alive. Because like I said before, self-care is not something that is a ticker box. It doesn't work that way. It is really embracing your growth and knowing that you will grow and evolve and continue to. So embrace it and have the toolbox and the toolkit so that you can do that as you need to, because we're all individuals, we're all on our own beautiful, unique journey, and that's to be celebrated, not to be competed with or compared to. So that's really important.
Oh, wow, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing more behind the title and more about the book, because I often hear from busy mums, they don't have time for themselves. It's all about the kids or the business or their partner or husband. There's immense pressure that mums are under now, especially with social media, where a lot of feedback I get is, oh my goodness, I see these mummy bloggers, and as beautiful as they are, their hair looks amazing, their makeup's immaculate, their photos are like from Vogue. And some women mums can fall in a trap of comparison. And what I love about your book or your message is it's really not about what other people are doing when it comes to self-care. It's about connecting back with your own self and nurturing yourself and building a relationship literally with yourself. Because what I see quite often is people get a title, say mum. And with that comes these certain social status requirements or a label, or whether you're a business owner, it doesn't really matter. But there becomes so much extra pressure. Your kid's got to be excelling at school. You've got to have your kid in maybe a private school. Your kids now suddenly need the latest iPhone and to be in every sports and to have this. Kids are so honed up now on technology and brands. And if Amy Lou has the latest iPhone, Jackie Jane wants that iPhone, and kids, like, there's so much pressure now for mothers or parents compared to, say, when I grew up in Australia, I didn't even have a telephone in the house, let alone be asking my mum and dad for the latest iPhone at 12 years of age. So there's a lot of extra financial pressure I'm seeing on parents, financial and expenses. And do you see that often, Sonia? You do a lot of work with mums in general. You're in the mum community. You have a mum, a podcast focused on kids. What is the extra pressures you feel you're seeing, or a constant theme that's coming through?
Oh, yeah, there's heaps of themes, heaps. And this is part of the inspiration for Flourish for Mums, because the expectations from society, from culture, and from ourselves is absolutely huge. It is super real, and it is so overwhelming. And a lot of what I've seen and experienced, as I said, I kind of came to a point of realization where it was like, hang on a sec, why am I feeling guilty about this? What's that about? So about questioning, and I talk about this in the book. How do you detox unwarranted guilt? So there's a difference between guilt and unwarranted guilt. So, really looking at that. The expectations are huge, but you know what? It comes back down to what you value. And that's it. What do you value? So come back to those values and focus on that. Your children are part of your world. They're growing with you as you are growing. So you're not meant to know it all. And it's not a relationship where I know it all and I'm teaching you everything. That's not it at all. And, having children, I realized very quickly, and I share in Flourish, I share stories of what children have taught me, what life lessons they have taught me, my own and the ones I have worked with, because it's powerful stuff. So it's not about, I know everything and I'm teaching you. It's, we're here, we're all human. And yes, I'm going to keep you safe and all those other things and allow some boundaries and framework. Yes, I get all those components. But then really, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. So we have a beautiful reciprocal relationship going on. And the key thing that I want, my children and any family dynamic, know what your values are and practice those. And your children will come back to those as well. That's their framework at the end of the day. And if you're valuing yourself and including yourself as, well, I have respect for myself together with everyone else, because do you know what? It doesn't take away from anyone. And that realization, again, it's a breakthrough. It's huge. When I've said to someone before, and I'll use an example of a mum, what would happen if you showed yourself more love? Would it make you love your children less? No. Okay. What's the problem? Is it okay for you to practice ways of loving yourself, to commit to being respectful of yourself? Would that help your children understand that they too should practice respect of themselves? Would you like for them to respect themselves as individuals without all the labels? They can understand the labels, but do you want them to respect themselves as a unique individual? Yes, I do. Fantastic. That will come from practicing and experiencing it, because you can tell them whatever you want, but they need to experience it through you and through their own experiences. That's where it comes from. So come back to your values. So important.
I love that message, because come back to your values. When I grew up as a small child in Australia in a country town, my mum, every Sunday, without fail, it was a day of rest, a day of self-care. She would go through the motions, whether she was doing a bit of a fast and drinking fresh juices. She would paint her toenails out in the sun, read feel-good magazines. We'd watch feel-good TV. She'd do skincare. It was a whole day of sort of slow down self-care. And I learned this every Sunday, like religiously. This is what we do. So then I assumed every mother on Mother Earth just did this, that they had this slow down day. And I'm so grateful, because that's sort of now we're celebrating this kind of self-care Sunday through 3 generations. But it just goes to show you that because my mum valued the relaxation, the slow down, the self-care, must admit she was an Oprah Winfrey fan and still is, like I am, and learned a lot about the importance of self-care and nurturing your body, mind and soul, spirituality. Now, I've since found out that other kids didn't grow up like that, even in my same small country town. Their mother wasn't doing any self-care on Sunday. So I just love how you just shared a really powerful message, not only in your book, but in now this podcast, where it's go back, know what your values are and go back to your values. So even if, someone's telling you, you got to I don't know, do 20 posts on a Sunday or on a Monday. And if that's not what you value and you just listen to what everyone else is doing out there, like if you listen to everybody, oh, your kid needs this new iPhone, but your value is no, I want them to work for it. And when they can afford it, they can buy it on their own. So know your values and stick with them, even when you're going to get bombarded with maybe your kid coming home talking about, the 20 other kids in their classroom, or you're going to see it on social media. So know your values. I love that, Sonia. That's just beautiful. Sonia, I want to ask you, writing your book, we're going to have a lot of people tuning in now. And I know many of our audience are fascinated with authors, what inspired them to write the book, but also, You've done children's books. You've written that as well, and you love to write. Now, there could be someone tuning into this podcast show that goes, wow, I want to be like Sonia, or I have this dream of writing a book, kids' book, or a self-care book. And want to ask you, how did you fit in writing your book when you're running a clinic, you've got 3 kids, you're a speaker, you do so many other things, obviously, in the community with your family and friends as well. But for someone who has a dream to write a book, but not making the time to do it or doubting themselves, can you give them a couple of tips on how they could start the process of writing a book that they've dreamed of doing?
Yeah. Well, it comes down to, again, number one, work on believing in yourself. I know that sounds really cliche, but you've got to believe in yourself and why you want to write. You know, like my books, all 3 of them, in my deepest soul place or space, I knew how important, and still know the importance of why I needed to write those books and get those messages out there. So my why was really clear and the purpose was really clear, because that is your fuel. Yeah, that's your fuel. When you've got the self-doubt, and a lot of authors, they could have published 30 books. That self-doubt is part of, I say, life, and it's a healthy self-doubt means that you're open to feedback, you're open to growing, and you're open to learning. And not so helpful self-doubt is that it blocks and paralyzes you from doing anything, right? So you've got different kinds of self-doubt. But if you're at the paralyzed with self-doubt, but you've got that belief in yourself, but you can't take the next step, I think connecting with like-minded people is so important. There are so many wonderful writers groups and societies for writers. Like, connect with them straight away. Join the societies, join the Facebook groups, because the communities are amazingly supportive. And then you can go at your own pace, but you've got those tools where you can go at your own pace and grow and move as you need to. But it helps to give you that energy, and that support system is so important. So that would be my first kind of super important piece of advice is, don't give up on yourself. Know your why, believe in that, and then just start taking little steps that you're comfortable with. But the important part is to take a step, even if it's one small one. Even if it's one small one, just take a step. And then as for your writing, I'm not a huge rule setter. Like, I know some people go, write for 30 minutes a day, and write 10,000 words a day, or whatever it is. And look, if you're a person that you feel that fits with how you work, then go for it. I'm very much about explore what works for you, because life is not a one size fits all, but play around with it. Like, play around with writing and go, okay, well, how about if I just commit to writing every day, even if it's like 2 words, but I'm just going to write every day, and just play with it. Take your notepad in your bag, go to a beach, go sit in the garden, whatever, sit in your bed, but just go every day. I'm just going to write something. And have fun. You might get to the end of the day and just go, oh, I didn't do it. And you might, I forgot to write stuff today. Done, tick. Like, don't take it too seriously. Find the joy and be playful with it. And that's going to let the creativity in. I think when we set too many rules, it can be really stifling and it feels like a chore. But I feel creativity is not like that. Creativity is creating positive experiences. So so I just say, make that commitment to write something each day, and join up with like-minded people.
I love those tips. Words of wisdom. That's incredible. Join up with like-minded people. I loved how you shared that. They will cheer you on, support you, read that chapter for you. Just that cohesive support, community, connection. And I loved how you talked about just do it. And also, like, just write. because I feel that creativity just arises, and at the most unusual times. Generally, if you're having a shower, that's a really good time when you will be in this very creative space where great ideas always come up, but in nature and just in those really calming environments, which has always been something where I've never gotten, say, people always say with as an example, Instagram algorithm, you've got to do 3 posts a day and you've got to do it at this time. And I could never understand that, because creativity arises from within. When you create content, if you're a true content creator, it doesn't come from looking at someone else's post or sticking to a timeline. It just arises from within, from your own heart and soul. And there's no time on that. It just happens, and it's a feeling, and that's when you need that pen and paper so you can write it down or journal it. And I just love that message. So thank you, Sonia, for sharing that. For all of those out there who want to write the book, just start today. Get your pen and paper, connect with those Facebook groups, the writing groups, and just start. I just love how you said, just take one step, and don't put any rules on yourself or put yourself under pressure. Make it fun and let that creative process come up. So thank you, Sonia, for sharing that. And to anyone who writes a book, because you've now been inspired to with Sonia's words of wisdom and me cheering you on as well, Yvette Le Blowitz, please do let us know when your book comes out, because we'd be super excited to support your book and to read it and be part of your book journey as well. So, Sonia, I could talk to you forever about your Flourish for Mums book. Congratulations once again on making this beautiful book happen. It's divine timing that it's launched before Mother's Day here in Australia. It's going to be a really beautiful Mother's Day gift for any mum out there. You can either buy it for yourself or for someone looking for a Mother's Day gift. You can buy it for that very special mum. Even if you're not a mum, what I really liked about your book, Sonia, is it's just practical self-care. So whilst you are a mum and you've pitched it for mums, I felt that the book was very great for time poor people. And you could look at one thing and go, oh, I might try that today. And I felt that self-care in itself was very empowering. So, Sonia, I want to ask you, before we say goodbye to our beautiful podcast audience globally, what's your hope or your wish now for your book readers?
I would say Flourish for Mums, the hope is that it is the go-to for a dose of inspiration, that it is a deep dive for those that really want to unblock areas in their life that are holding them back from experiencing deep joy in their day-to-day. And the hope is really that, and it's not even a hope, because I know that it is an invaluable self-care toolbox or way of living that nurtures, that reconnects and strengthens a relationship with self, and that is going to strengthen healthy, positive, wonderful relationships with others. So ultimately, it's honest, it's real, it's relatable. A mum said it's like talking to a trusted friend who understands. And ultimately, that trusted friend is that divine wisdom within you. So, yeah, that's the hope.
I love that, talking to a trusted friend within. It's so important that as mums or anyone tuning into this show, that you truly nourish yourself and in order to thrive, Sonia, which you've shared on this occasion, and to flourish and to grow, you have to connect with your inner self, your true self, and really make time to even listen to your own heartbeat or to your own breath, or just to take a moment to practice gratitude. and just to give yourself a break. Because you know what? I think as Aussies, and this could be for every culture around the world, but we can be so harsh. And in Australia, if you come second, that sucks. Like, we've been taught first place, people generally will tall poppy syndrome. I hate to say it. First place, you could have done better, but that's okay. You've won. Second place isn't good enough, and third place definitely not good enough. And this is in the Olympics. I mean, seriously, second and third, these people they're the best in the world. They're the best in Australia, but we've always known to be maybe harsher critics to people at the top, and we've always been very competitive. And I just feel that I think hopefully through even this global pandemic, there's been a little bit of softening where we have to soften a bit, soften on ourselves and soften on others, and just really acknowledge that everybody's trying their best and doing their best and can be their best. So I love, Sonia, your story there. I love the Flourish for Mums book. And I love how you're sharing the self-acceptance, self-awareness, self-kindness, and self-care, and how important it is to each person. So thank you again, Sonia. Now, before we say goodbye, how can we stay in touch with you after this podcast show?
Yeah, so look, I would love for listeners and viewers to follow me on Instagram. There's Flourish for Mums page and a Sonia Bestulic page. But also you can head to flourishformums.com and you can sign up to my newsletter, or soniabestulic.com. And that's a wonderful way that you can get some periodic updates from me on what's happening, what the latest is, or kind of any little doses of inspiration. So and for anyone interested in the podcast, that's called Chat About Children with Sonia Bestulic, and very much a place where I love to empower people to grow with the children in their life.
I love that. It's an honor today chatting to you as another podcaster, because I know before this show we talked about why we love podcasts so much. The unique stories, the real life people sharing their tips, their words of wisdom. These are really lived experiences, and the more that we share them within our communities, we can learn from each other. And I love how it's dedicated with mums and children, and how you are actively growing this Flourish for Mums community, because every mum I've spoken to is feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, their mental health, some is at breaking point. They're just pushing, financial costs, living costs. It's real, and it's there, and we need to acknowledge the pressure. But I truly am a firm believer. I've got goosebumps saying this, Sonia, but I'm a true believer and firm believer by self-care that can make such a difference to your own life, mental health and well-being, and it's so important. So that's why I wanted to get your book out there and the work that you do. So Sonia, thank you again for being part of the Spirit Girl Talk Show podcast. I will say goodbye, and it's been an absolute pleasure sharing your book, Flourish for Mums, today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonia. So we'll say goodbye to Sonia Bestulic. I'll get that right. And want you to know that you're all worthy enough, and you deserve to take care of yourself first. Even if you are a mum, you have to look after yourself, even if you're a dad. Whatever your title is, self-care is so important. But I just hope this story of Sonia and the book she's written and her words of wisdom inspires you just to even take a moment out in the morning and practice gratitude or to set your intention for the day, be sure to grab a copy of Flourish for Mums. I'll leave the link in this podcast show. And I would love for you to subscribe, leave 5-star rating and review, and to tell someone you love too. And together, let's feel good from within. Bye for now. Bye.